My name is Amanda, and I'm 36 years old. The past few months have been incredibly difficult for me, forcing me to relearn many things. A lot of the trouble I'm in can be traced back to my husband, Franklin. But despite the pain, a kind person stepped in to help me avoid even more heartache. To understand my story, I should introduce you to some of the key people involved. First, there's my sister, S.A. She's 6 years younger than me, and she's always been the pretty, popular one. Growing up, we didn't get along. I was the shy, bookish type, and ISA seemed to resent me for it, often teasing me. Our mother tried her best to get us to bond, but nothing really changed. When I left for college, we drifted apart. We didn't talk much, but when ISA became a teenager, we started reconnecting. While we never became particularly close, our relationship improved a little over the years. I accepted that this was probably the best we could do. Next, there's my ex-husband, Franklin. We met at work, and things clicked right away. We dated for 3 years before tying the knot. We worked hard and eventually bought our first house together. I made more money, so the mortgage was in my name. After 2 years of marriage, Franklin brought up the idea of starting a family. "Honey, I've been thinking about something. I need you to keep an open mind." "Alright, what is it?" "I think it's time for us to start a family. We've been together for a while now, and it might be the right time." "Franklin, you know how I feel about that." "I know, but we've got the money now, and imagine how cute it would be to have little versions of us running around." "I'm just saying, kids are a huge responsibility. We're both responsible people. Come on, give it some thought." Reluctantly, I agreed, promising that I'd help with the kids. Franklin wore me down, and after our son was born, 3 years later, we had a daughter. At first, Franklin was helpful, but that didn't last. Slowly, the responsibility shifted to me, and suddenly, I was doing everything at home. After our first child, Franklin insisted that I stop working since he had gotten a promotion and was making more than I was. Though I resisted at first, I eventually gave in. To pass the time and avoid feeling isolated, I started hosting dinners, inviting my mom and sister, who lived nearby, and sometimes my mother-in-law, Sonia. Over time, I began to settle into my new life, enjoying the company of my family. Everything seemed fine, at least on the surface. However, I went through a traumatic experience after giving birth to our second child, nearly dying during labor. It changed our relationship, and I thought things were still okay, but I couldn't have been more wrong. One day, while cleaning my room, I found a pair of panties that didn't belong to me. My stomach dropped. I had just had our second child, and I was still recovering. I had been in therapy, but the progress felt slow, and now, I had this unsettling evidence that my husband might be cheating on me. My first instinct was to confront Franklin, so I sent him a picture of the underwear and asked whose they were. But when I checked his laptop and went through his social media, I found nothing. There were no strange women in his chats. Desperate, I combed through every single message, convinced I would find something, anything. And then, I saw it, my sister's name appeared everywhere. At first, I brushed it off. Why would there be anything suspicious about ISA and Franklin talking? But as I scrolled through their messages, my blood ran cold. The conversations were filled with intimate photos, videos, and declarations of love. They were planning for Franklin to leave me. I felt sick to my stomach. My sister? My own sister? How could she do this to me? I was so disgusted, I vomited. I immediately called Franklin, but he didn't answer. Then I called ISA. ISA, what's going on? Don't hate me. What's wrong with you? I found a pair of your panties in my bedroom. Have you been sleeping with Franklin? Yeah, for a while now. Why? I thought I was helping you. I was keeping Franklin busy so you could focus on the kids. You thought it was okay to sleep with my husband just because you thought I was boring? Look, I didn't mean for it to go this far. He kept hitting on me, and, he's a nice guy. But he was my husband. You helped tear apart my family? I just wanted what was best for him. Well, if you're the best for him, then so be it. You're disgusting. I hung up, too furious and hurt to say anything more. I just collapsed into bed, feeling utterly broken. I didn't want to believe this was my life. Eventually, my youngest child woke up crying, and I went through the motions of caring for her, though my heart felt hollow. I didn't want my kids to know what had happened, so I put on a brave face. I made dinner, picked up my older child from school, and when they asked where their dad was, I lied and said he was working late. The anger soon turned into a gnawing worry. It was almost 11 p.m., and Franklin still wasn't home. I tried calling him repeatedly, but there was no answer. I even called ISA, but she didn't pick up either. Exhausted, I went to bed, praying it was all a bad dream. The next morning, everything felt wrong. I woke up and saw that Franklin's things were gone. His clothes, his toiletries, gone. He had left while I was asleep, without saying a word. I couldn't understand how he could just walk out like that without trying to fix things. But I had to focus on my kids. They needed me. I dropped my oldest at school and took my youngest to my mom's place. She noticed something was off and pressed me until I finally told her what had happened. "Mom, Franklin's been cheating on me. I found out through his things, and then he just left. I woke up this morning to find all his stuff gone. Oh my God, I'm so sorry, sweetheart." "But who was he cheating with? Do you know?" "Yeah, it was ISA. My own sister. She and Franklin are in love, and she thinks she's the best for him." "Are you serious? That's unbelievable. I don't know how to cope, Mom. I have 2 kids to raise, and I need to figure out how to start over. Listen, why don't we just rest for now? Let's take things one step at a time. I'll help you, okay?" "Okay, thanks, Mom." That night, I couldn't escape the numbness of everything that had happened. I slept while my mom took care of my youngest, but when I woke up, I heard the baby crying again, and my mom was on the phone, looking furious. She hung up abruptly when she saw me, but didn't explain who she'd been talking to. Whatever it was, I knew things were about to get even harder. I knew my mom had been giving ISA an earful. Over the next few days, she stayed with us. It was easier to have her move in than have multiple people around. ISA kept trying to contact Mom, but she asked me to block her, and I did. It was comforting to have someone around who understood what I was going through when I felt so isolated. Through mutual friends, I found out that Franklin and ISA had gotten married. They reached out to me, confused and concerned, and I had to explain everything. It was humiliating, but at least they were supportive. They all blocked Franklin and ISA and refused to have any further contact with them. I learned that they got married the day after Franklin left us, and while it hurt, I realized I shouldn't have expected anything different. When I told Mom, she was livid. You should know, my mom is usually calm, so seeing her so furious with ISA was surprising. It was reassuring to have her financial support, even though she wasn't obligated to help. She did everything she could for us. She even helped me set up job interviews because I wanted to contribute now that Franklin wasn't there to control me. Taking care of the kids was manageable, but when they asked about Franklin, I had to hold back tears. Still, we got by. A week later, I received a letter from Franklin. I had no interest in reading it. I figured it was an apology, but by then, I was done with him. A week was too long to wait for him to try to fix things, especially after he'd just abandoned us. So, I did the only thing I could think of, I burned the letter. But afterward, curiosity gnawed at me. Sometimes I wondered what it said, but I reminded myself that nothing he could have written would change how I felt about him or what he'd done. The next day, my mom and I took the kids to the fair. It was a nice break. The noise and the crowd helped me forget, even if only for a few hours, about everything I'd been through. I was able to laugh and enjoy myself, which felt amazing after such a tough time. That night, Mom and I relaxed with a bottle of wine, and I told her about the letter. "So, something came in the mail for me last night," I started. "Oh, what was it?" "It was a letter from Franklin." "What? What did it say?" "I don't know." "What do you mean?" "You opened it, right?" "No, I didn't want to deal with anything he had to say, so I burned it. You burned it? How? What if it was something important, like divorce papers? The envelope didn't look official at all. I'm sure it wasn't anything like that. Well, if you're sure, what do you think was in it? I don't know. Maybe a weak apology or a request for his stuff back. Wouldn't surprise me. But how are you feeling about all of this now? Well, today was a good day. It's tough, especially with the kids asking where their dad is. What do I even tell them? It's slowly getting better, but only a little at a time. As long as things are improving, I'm getting by. And just so you know, Mom continued, I'm planning to cut ties with ISA. Everything I have will go to you and the kids. Oh, Mom, that means a lot. But are you sure? Maya is still your sister, but what she did is unforgivable. I raised both of you better than this, and ISA clearly didn't care, so she's no longer my daughter. I could have been upset, but I wasn't. I knew ISA was still Mom's child, and I couldn't imagine how difficult that decision had been for her. It made me even more grateful to have someone so supportive. 3 days later, I heard a knock at the door. I wasn't expecting anyone. Besides my mom, who was at work, no one came by. I opened the door cautiously and found 2 men in black suits. I only opened the door a little and asked who they were. They told me they were lawyers and had something for me. They handed me a note and a check, $750,000 made out to me. My jaw dropped. I tried to tell them it must have been a mistake, but they assured me it wasn't. They told me to read the note. The letter began, "Thank you for saving me." As I read further, I realized the money was from Sonia, my mother-in-law. She had visited us 3 days earlier but had found no one home. When she called Franklin, he tried to make it sound like he couldn't get in, but I had changed the locks after he left. Sonia sensed something was off and pressured him until he confessed everything. Disgusted by his actions, she decided to leave her inheritance to me and her grandkids. She thanked me for preventing her from making a mistake and for not trusting her son with her assets. The lawyers told me that Sonia had been terminally ill and had passed away just the day before. She wanted me to receive the money immediately, to ensure I and her grandkids were taken care of after her death. Tears welled up as I read her words. Sonia was a remarkable woman, always standing up for what was right. It was one of the reasons Franklin had always feared her, but I found her comforting. She had supported me until the very end. A few days later, Franklin called. I knew what he was going to say, but I decided to hear him out. "What did you do?" he asked. "What do you mean?" I replied. "You know exactly what I mean. Franklin, you'll have to be more specific. Why weren't you home that day?" "I specifically asked you to be. I sent you a letter asking you to pretend everything was normal while my mom visited." "Oh, was that what the letter said? You didn't read it?" "No, I burned it. You betrayed me. My mother was going to help me with the inheritance, but you took it all because you're selfish. That's ironic coming from you. You abandoned your family and only cared about the inheritance. Love can't be forced. I did what was best for me, and your mother did what was best for us. Don't ever contact me or the kids again. Goodbye." After that, everything moved quickly. I filed for divorce, and I was granted full custody of the kids. Franklin tried to fight for the inheritance, but Sonia had made it clear I was to receive it, so he didn't succeed. He and ISA tried to pressure me into giving them some of the money, but I stood my ground and refused. Life has been easier since we got the money. I put a portion aside for my kids' college and invested the rest. My mom could retire, and I started working. The kids are starting to understand that their dad won't be coming back. When they're older, I'll tell them everything. I'm still hurting, but I know things can only get better from here.